Well, if there's one thing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu loves to do besides killing civilians, it's inserting himself, usually within a few minutes, into large-scale tragedies. It's something that he does he thrives on it, actually. His goal is obvious, somehow to make each of these world tragedies about Israel. He thrives on exploiting tragedies for personal gain. Of course, he did it in a few minutes after Charlie Kirk's murder. He did it once again yesterday, as if he's somehow a spokesperson for all Jews of the world. He blamed Australia's prime minister for the Bondi Beach attack, which killed 16 people. He said he warned him back in August that something like this would happen. Watch.
On August 17th, about 4 months ago, I sent Prime Minister Albanese of Australia a letter in which I gave him warning that the Australian government's policy was promoting and encouraging anti-Semitism in Australia. I wrote, "Your call for a Palestinian state pours fuel on the anti-Semitic fire. It rewards Hamas terrorism. It emboldens those who menace Australian Jews and encourages the Jew hatred now stalking your streets."
All right.
Anti-Semitism is...
So basically, Netanyahu is saying that Australia got what it deserved for not supporting his genocide in Gaza. In other words, we told you so. Okay, got it. But not so fast. Last February, our friend of the show, Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone, reported on an investigation that was already happening in Australia with paid actors carrying out anti-Semitic events, maybe the very same type of anti-Semitic events that Netanyahu was just referencing. Watch.
There's a fascinating investigation taking place in Australia, and I think it will soon turn into some kind of cover-up. I tweeted about this a few days ago. Australian police are investigating whether, quote, overseas actors or individuals are paying local criminals to carry out anti-Semitic crimes in the country. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says anti-Semitic attacks are being, this is his words, perpetrated by people who don't have a particular issue, aren't motivated by an ideology, but are paid actors. He added, quote, "It's unclear who or where the payments are coming from."
Paid actors. Who could be paying these people? Jamie McIntyre is the chief editor of the Australian National Review, and he was out there debunking this almost immediately, a voice that we wanted to have here on the show. Jamie, welcome to the show. Great to see you.
Pleasure, Clayton.
Real pleasure to have you. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Australian National Review always like to help people predict what's likely to happen. If it's the typical suspects that you'd have to, if you look into investigating any murder, and this is a mass murder, you got to go who has motive, who has past behavior, pattern of history, and who also has capability to do these things. So that puts about 95% of a particular state you've been talking about. So if you're a betting person, so we put up many challenges. We put up $1 million challenge very quickly that we bet this was the fake state created in 1948, other people would call Israel. And if it is Israel, this is what you'll look for. Of course, they will blame a Muslim or a Islamic terrorist, but they would not tell you that they fund Islamic terrorism and recruit Islamic terrorists, such as ISIS, etc., was created by this state. They'll also push out a narrative. They'll use most likely paid actors, etc., etc. So there's a particular formula they follow. So it's a matter of people working out themselves. If they follow fake news, they're always going to believe fake news, which I tell most people, if you don't have time to be a geopolitical expert, simply whatever they tell you on the news is pretty accurately the opposite of the truth. So when they're telling you, framing, obviously, it's a Muslim or it's an Islamic terrorist, you know that's not the truth. So you only have to start searching and go, well, what is the truth? And I think the question is, are they getting, Clayton, are they getting sloppier, the Mossad and Israel, or is it that people are just waking up? And my feeling is people are waking up. What people don't realize, though, is that how many people in the West, I call them dumbed down Westerners, still don't know who did this September 11th. How many Australians don't know who was behind, when we did an investigation, who was behind the Bali bombings in 2002? We did the investigation. Is it possible Mossad, Israel, was behind the Bali bombings that killed 300 Australians in 2002? And we found out not only was, but the same Mossad cooperatives that organized that were behind the Port Arthur massacre over 30 years ago in Australia, which brought in the removal of our strict gun laws back then. So the people are going to continue to die until enough people wake up and realize who's behind these attacks. If more people were aware today of who does these attacks, then we could have stopped these attacks. So it's so critically important that people find out the truth themselves, because they're not going to listen to people telling them the truth. They have to dig and stop believing fake news media. And then we have a hope to stop these sort of attacks by this evil regime that thinks they can get away with it.
Now, what do you think of the narrative then that Palestinians, because Australia recognized a Palestinian state, that this fueled anti-Semitism? I would think that the opposite would be true, but I can't follow this logic. It's so asinine. Does anybody? Who buys that?
Well, I think now, because the growth of independent media and also citizen journalism, I think that's what's really changed. Everyone wants to be a Nancy Drew detective, and I think independent citizen journalists are out there in real time looking for evidence of going, well, this official story doesn't add up, and they can debunk it very quickly. So I think those who got used to get away with doing these sort of things were used to the newspapers and like TV news stations where they could control the news cycle. But now it's instant news coming up minute by minute. So millions of citizen journalists around the world, and then you've got independent journalists that are speaking out. I mean, even Tucker Carlson's said that Netanyahu is the greatest threat to Western civilization. So many people since COVID are very skeptical of the government, very skeptical of mainstream media, because they lie and lie all the time. The other thing is, where was the police response? I've lived in Bondi before. Anyone that's been to Bondi, I've never been to Bondi once yet, and there's not police there all the time.
Yeah, let's put this up on the screen if we can, Philip, which is the police response. The reports are this afternoon that from eyewitnesses who were there, that it was 20 minutes before police did anything. They stood by, and there's a police station right there next to Bondi Beach. So what were the police doing standing down for 20 minutes while they just opened fire on these individuals? As I said to Colonel Watkins a few moments ago, there's a lot of standing down happening lately.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, were there stand-down orders? Charlie Kirk asked of Netanyahu, and we know what happened after that. So were there stand-down orders? Generally, what they do in these situations is they bamboozle the police force. They might make calls in and have them sent somewhere else, or they say, it's under control, we've got specialists here dealing with it, stay back, don't interfere, we're taking care of it. Whatever they do, that needs to be investigated, but they do something to bamboozle or distract the local police operations so they can't do what they should have done. If any one of us went with an assault weapon to Bondi or anywhere in Australia and started shooting people, there's not a hope in hell you could do that for 20 minutes and not be taken out by police.
So I want to talk about the narrative that continues to unfold, because now we're seeing Western governments and mainstream news popping up and saying, I told you anti-Semitism is on the rise. If you look at this graphic from Fox News, they're saying, look at this surge of attacks just in the U.S. alone. What they don't say here is that the way that the ADL is defining anti-Semitism is seeing problematic comments about Israel. So it stands to reason that that definition of anti-Semitism is on the rise, because, in my opinion, Israel merits problematic comments. So, what are they selling us here based on this graphic?
Well, they're trying to suggest, first of all, anti-Semitism, if it's on the rise, is probably on the rise as the rise of bombs that are dropped on children is on the rise every day in Gaza. So Netanyahu, in that speech I highlighted before, is trying to say the Australian Prime Minister or Australia is responsible for the increase in anti-Semitism in Australia. Not like, we're not the ones dropping bombs on children. We're not the ones that snipe at kids in the head not once but twice in Gaza. So they can do that in Gaza. What makes you think they can't do it in Bondi or anywhere in the world? So the rise of anti-Semitism, they need the rise of that. that. They thrive off that. They want to divide, Christians against Muslims. They want to also scare the bejesus out of Jewish people, so they send more money back to Israel or relocate out of Australia back to Israel. That's part of their plan. I mean, half my friends are Jewish, and most of my Jewish friends support my politics, which are very aware. They don't like Netanyahu. They don't like this regime. And I think people are a bit sick of this whole anti-Semitic thing. No, we're anti-Israel, and we're anti-dropping bombs on innocent children.
Yeah, but that's not a popular opinion.
Makes sense.
What if the censored medicine that saved millions during the pandemic was being made mostly in China today? It's true. About 80% of the world's ivermectin supply comes from Asia, but not at the wellness company. Introducing American-made ivermectin, safe, trusted, tested, and produced locally in Florida. Ivermectin has been prescribed globally for more than 30 years and even earned the Nobel Prize in Medicine for its proven ability to eliminate parasites. But after the success of treating COVID, emerging research shows the wonder drug can actually help with everything, from rosacea, arthritis, even cancer. Most pharmacies charge $5 a tablet for 12 milligrams or less, but the wellness company is offering a higher 18 milligram dose for just $3.50 per tablet. You get a 6-month supply of 84 tablets at an unbeatable price. So support American medicine and patriotic doctors, not China's supply chain. Get your US-made ivermectin today at twc.health/redacted. Use the code redacted to save $30 off plus free shipping. And, as you heard Netanyahu tell the prime minister, hey, we warned you, back in August. I sent you a letter about this. Max Blumenthal of the Gray Zone reporting back in February, as I reposted his tweet, that there had been investigations by the Australian government into these anti-Semitic events in Australia, these paid actors. So it was already being looked at by the government, these quote unquote paid actors, to incite violence in that country. I mean, was this a surprise to you at all?
No, we like Candace Owens was pretty on the ball and said, a month or two ago, you've seen her post where she predicted by the second week of December there'd be a terrorist attack in somewhere like this. And if you're going to do a terrorist attack, we also predicted that. We said, of course, it's a typical playbook. As they're losing control, the dying days, I think, of a desperate regime, they become more desperate and they're going to do these things. The attacks on the synagogues in Melbourne, etc. It was found out, if you study that the attacks on Jewish synagogues around the world mostly have been found out to be either by Jewish people or paid actors from the state of Israel. So the fake caravan plot they had to rush in anti-Semitism laws in Australia, where you can't criticize Israel, that was done off what was a completely fake one. So at least they didn't kill any people that time, but now they realize they need to up the ante, and killing innocent Australians, whether they're Jewish, Muslim, or Christians, doesn't seem to bother these people.
It seems like you weren't even surprised by this at all. I was watching your tweets almost immediately. You were all over this. This is a false flag. This is absolute bullshit. They are playing us right from the beginning. You nailed this.
Yeah, we have a habit of being able to predict the future. It's not because we have a crystal ball or know in real time what's likely to happen. It's because I guess if you put a jigsaw pieces together, you know what the jigsaw looks like when it's complete. You have a view or vision that other people mightn't if they've never put the jigsaw piece together. But so those who studied independent media and critical thinkings and don't swallow fake news, we've figured out pretty much why is there wars in this world and why is there terror attacks? And that was an answer I asked many years ago and found the answer. And it all leads back to predominantly 95% of attacks tend to be by Mossad and Israel. They created global terrorism. So a lot of Australians would be going, why does these tragic things happen? Well, my message to Australians is because why ever we're dumbed down and believe fake news, because what happens when there's an emotional triggered event like this and they want to emotionally trigger us, most people go right back to watching the TV and everything they say on TV, they just consumed by it and believe it to be true. They lose their ability to critically think. We don't want this to be another Port Arthur massacre where 30-odd years later, most Australians have no clue who slaughtered Australians on that day or who did the Bali bombings, or for Westerners around the world, who was behind September 11th.
Now, something that I recognized right away, because I'm watching this happen and I think, okay, maybe this is an Islamist extremist who wanted to kill Jews during their Hanukkah celebration, possibly exactly what they're saying it is. But as soon as I see these media outlets saying that a Holocaust survivor was amongst them, I'm thinking, okay, wait, the youngest Holocaust survivor has to be 80, right? And the picture that they're giving us is a woman who clearly is not 80. And then it says that it was her husband who died. Okay, so you go in to read their story. He survived an exile in Siberia during World War II, which was never under Nazi control. People who live in exile because of wars, that's not the same as surviving a Holocaust concentration camp or a ghetto. And so I can tell right away that they are playing on our emotional programming around the Holocaust to make this worse. And it doesn't need it. His death is tragic enough. It seemed like he jumped on his wife to save her. We don't need to do this. And as soon as you see this emotional manipulation, that's the rest of us, you can't help it, right? It's not that we don't have any sympathy or sadness. Absolutely, I do. But once I see them, it's not him who did this. Once I see the media doing this, I'm angry. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you've got to look for. And I say to people, if they did it, let's see if they did it. This is what they will do. They will obviously paint it as Islamic terrorism, but not let you know that they're the funders of Islamic terrorism and they recruit these people to carry out these acts. They'll hide that from you. They'll push a narrative that we must stand with Israel, because that's what they want Australians to do. And many Australians do foolishly still stand with the state of Israel. Many Jewish still stand with the state of Israel. So you just look at what they go about doing, and then you go, oh, hang on, how are we able to predict exactly what they're doing ahead of time, what they would do? Because it's the same old playbook. Then the guy that was survived October 7th. Then magically arrives in Australia 2 weeks ago to fight anti-Semitism, a Jewish spokesperson covered in blood with a bandage on, etc. And that's who they're interviewing as the face of this tragedy. But he has time to take a selfie in the middle of a massacre when he should be more concerned about his children, etc. I mean, it's just absurd. And they expect us to believe this theatrics. I mean, it's just not necessary unless, of course, you're trying to push an agenda which is fabricated to mislead and deceive the Australian public, which it is. They want people to stand with Israel. They're losing massive support around the world, especially from young people that weren't around when Port Arthur massacre and even September 11th happened. So they need to continue to manipulate the public, and that's why they base it on deception.
Right. Yeah, this guy takes a selfie and then libs of TikTok blasts it out all over the place. Like, oh, he was a survivor of October 7th, and now he's a survivor of this. The Jew hate must stop. I want to ask you this, Jamie, before we let you go, and you've been so kind with your time. I know you woke up at like 5 a.m. there for us to do the show, so thank you for that. Man, you're sharper at 5 a.m. than I am all day, so thank you for that. But we just got this news in just a short time ago, which is Rabbi Kaplan, which is Trump's pick now for the U.S. anti-Semitism czar. So now, thank God, in the United States, we have an anti-Semitism czar. It's going to have a whole division inside of Marco Rubio's State Department designed to battle anti-Semitism on the internet. So thank goodness more censorship is coming in the name of Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. So watch also what laws they all push through during the Christmas break when Australians aren't paying attention in Australia. I suspect there's already evidence coming out they're going to make the gun laws in Australia, which are already the strictest in the world, even more stricter. Why are they concerned that some people might have guns? Maybe fight back in the future. So that'll be more stricter. There'll be more censorship. People like myself, I had to leave Australia some years ago because we exposed the COVID fraud and we were threatened and our journalists threatened. So I live in a safe haven in Indonesia. But every time I go back into Australia, I have to be careful because I've been pulled aside many times and interrogated at the Sydney airport. And I know that if I continue to speak out against this state, like many independent journalists, that life is going to get harder and harder. Anyone that's critical of Israel, we will be targeted. But we've got to have principle. We've got to have honor. We're not Ben Shapiro's here that take shekels for lying for a fake state. We will speak the truth because that's what we stand for.
Jamie, I hope you'll come back. You just made my day. Thank you so much. Great to have you here on the show. Thanks for waking up at 5 a.m. there in Indonesia. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Pleasure.